ओम शांति। जब 1981 में
1981,
मुझे बाबा का परिचय मिला,
when I received Baba's introduction,
कोई 7 दिन का कोर्स तो नहीं किया था,
I hadn't taken the 7 days course,
मेरे ही घर में गीता पाठशाला शुरू हो चुकी थी।
but a Gita Pathshala had
लॉकडाउन
started
में
in my
हॉस्टल में
home.
रह करके पढ़ते थे
I
और
used
जब
to
वेकेशन में घर
stay
आए
in
तो
the
बाबा
hostel
का
to
गीता
study,
पाठशाला हमारे ही
and when
घर
I
में खुल
came
गया
home
था
for the holidays, I found
और
that a Gita Pathshala had started
सप्ताह
in
में
our
2
home,
बार आते थे।
and the sisters used to come twice a week to our
उस दिन
home.
बहन आए हुए थे
And
और डायरेक्ट
those
बाबा
days
के
the
महावाक्य
sisters
सुने
were there, and I
और
heard
सुन करके
directly
एक
Baptada's
जैसे ही
versions,
जागृति आई
and it was as if there was
ये
an
ही
awakening
सच्चा
within
गीता
me
का ज्ञान है
that this is the
और
knowledge of the
इस
true
ज्ञान
Gita.
को किसने दिया है,
Who has given
कैसे
me
दिया
this
है,
knowledge?
ये बात
How
को
has it
समझने
been
के लिए
given? In order to
दूसरे
understand
ही दिन
this,
से मैंने बाबा की जीवन
from the
कहानी पढ़ना
next
शुरू
day
किया
I started to read Baba's life story.
और जैसे जैसे मैं बाबा की जीवन कहानी पढ़ती गई
And as I continued to read Baba's life story,
बहुत ही इमोशनली इफेक्ट हुआ
it affected
कि
me
इस रीति से यज्ञ की
emotionally very
स्थापना
much
हुई,
as to how this
कैसे
yajna
दादियों
was
ने
established,
यज्ञ को स्थापन करने के लिए सहन किया।
how much the Dadis had to tolerate in order to
बहुत ही
establish the
प्रेरणा मिली
yajna.
वो जीवन कहानी पढ़ते
I received a lot of
और
inspiration
उस दिन
by
से
reading that life story,
हमने
and
बाबा
from
की
that
मुरली
day
रोज सुनने का एक संकल्प
I
दृढ़
made
लिया।
a determined thought to listen to Baba's
मुझे
Murli
याद
every
नहीं
day.
है कि कभी भी मैंने बाबा की मुरली मिस की होगी,
I don't think I have ever missed
क्योंकि
Baba's Murli,
भगवान धरा पर आए हैं
because since God has come
और
onto this
उनके
earth,
महावाक्य हम न सुने
and how can we not listen to
तो
his
कैसे चलता।
versions?
और जब हम हर वेकेशन में मधुबन आते रहे,
I used to come to Madhuban
और
during
जैसे
my
जैसे
holidays,
मधुबन आते थे
and when I would come to
तो
Madhuban,
दादियों की पालना तो मिलती ही थी,
I would receive the
लेकिन
sustenance
जब
from the
मैं पहली
Dadis.
बार मधुबन आई
But in fact, the first time
1981
when I
में
came to
अक्टूबर में,
Madhuban in October
खास दिवाली
1981,
के दिन थे
it was the time of
और
Diwali,
मैं रोज दादी जी को गुड मॉर्निंग करते
and
थे।
I used to go and
अगर
say
दादी
good morning
दिखाई
to
भी
Dadi
देती थी तो
ji.
ओम शांति हमारा चलता रहता
And
था।
in fact, anytime we would
और
see
दिवाली के
Dadi,
दिन
we
हमारी
would say Om Shanti to her.
दीदी ने कहा कि चलो दादी को हैप्पी दिवाली करने चलते हैं
One
सुबह सुबह मुरली
morning,
क्लास से पहले।
my senior sister said to me, "Come, let's go and
हम
say
दादी
good
जी के
morning to
कमरे में
Dadi
गए
before Murli." So we
और
went to
सारा
Dadi
कमरा
ji's
उस दिन फुल
room,
था।
and in fact that day the whole room
दादी जी
was
सबको
full.
दृष्टि दे रहे थे
Dadi ji was giving drishti to everyone.
और सबको दृष्टि देने के बाद दादी ने
After
पूछा
giving
कि ये
drishti to
कन्या कहाँ से
everyone,
है।
Dadi said, "Where
मेरी
is
ओर
this
अंगुली दिखा करके दादी ने
Kumari
प्रश्न पूछा
from?"
तो
And
हमारी
Dadi was
दीदी ने
pointing
कहा कि
towards
दादी
me,
ये
and
सूरत
she
की
asked
एक
this
गीता
question.
पाठशाला से हैं।
And my Didi said, "Well, she is from a
दादी
Gita
ने पूछा
Pathshala
कब
near
से ज्ञान
Surat."
में है
And Dadi
तो
said,
कहा कि
"Since
6
when
मास
is
से
she
ज्ञान
in
में है।
Gyan?" "She's in Gyan since 6
तो दादी
months."
जी ने कहा कि
And
लगती
Dadi
तो
ji
बहुत
said,
पुरानी है।
"She seems much older than
तो
that
मुझे बहुत
actually."
नशा चढ़ गया
And so I became very
कि
intoxicated about
मुझे
that.
सिर्फ मधुबन अपना नहीं लगा,
That I didn't
लेकिन
just
दादी जी
feel
को
a
भी
sense
लगा
of
कि
belonging
ये
with Madhuban,
पुरानी आत्मा
but
है।
even Dadiji felt that I was an old soul.
बाद में हर वेकेशन में मधुबन आते
And then
रहे।
after that, I came to Madhuban every
एक बार की
holiday.
बात है
One time,
कि मधुबन से वापस जाना था।
I had to go back from Madhuban.
उस समय ओम शांति भवन नहीं था,
At that
तो
time, Om
मेडिटेशन
Shanti
हॉल में
Bhavan
बाबा
hadn't
आए
yet been
थे
constructed, and Baba had
और
come in the
दूसरे दिन
meditation
हमारी
hall.
ट्रेन थी वापस जाने की।
And the next day, I had my train to
तो
go back.
हमारा जो ट्रांसपोर्ट संभालने वाले भाई थे
And so the
ओम
brother
प्रकाश
Om
भाई,
Prakash Bhai, who looks
उन्होंने
after the
कहा कि तुम
transport
रात
at
को
the
भी चले
time,
जाओ,
he said,
आबू
"You
रोड में
can go
सप्ताह भवन
down
है वहाँ
to Abu Road in the evening itself, stay in Sangam Bhavan, because in the morning there is your train. However, Baba was sitting there and I really didn't feel like going because, of course, they would go listen to the Murli and then they would go down. And I said, well, I don't want to go down now because my train is in the morning. But the brother said, no, who's going to take you in the morning? So you should go in the evening. So I really didn't feel like it. But anyway, I went to take leave from Dadiji. When I said to Dadi, I have come to take leave. And Dadi said, but where are you going now? I said, Dadi, my train is in the morning and the brother is saying that you should go down at night itself, even though I don't really want to go. Dadi said, okay, call Om Prakash Bhai. I called him and I said, Dadiji is calling you. And he came. Dadiji asked him what time my train was in the morning. And the brother said it's at 8 o'clock in the morning. And Dadiji said, well, why are you sending her in the evening? And he said, well, who's going to take her in the morning? There aren't any other passengers. So Dadiji said, Dadi's car will drop her in the morning. At that time, there were no other cars in the yagya. There was just one ambassador car. And I saw how big was Dadi's heart. I was an ordinary Kumari and I was still studying actually. But at that time, Dadi took my heart. In the beginning, in fact, Dadi used to always give me a lot of sustenance. And when I first came for service in Madhuban, my duty was to prepare the chapatis, and from 4 to 8 in the evening I would go to the museum to do service there. And whenever we came back, Dadiji would ask us, how many people did you explain to? Did anyone ask you any particular kind of questions? And tell me what answers you gave them. Dadiji would ask us all these questions, and Dadiji was always sitting in the courtyard. And so what you might call a sense of belonging, there was such a sense of belonging, a feeling of that. Whenever Dadi was in the courtyard, we would always go and stand next to her. And Dadiji actually never spoke loudly with anyone, would never raise her voice. Dadiji would speak with a lot of love with each one. This was a very great example in front of us, our Dadis. One time, in 1983, when I had come to Madhuban, my Didi always wanted me to live in the center so that I could get some practical training. However, I was always pulled to Madhuban. And so I said this to Didi Manmohini, that Didi, am I making any mistake? And Didi said, no, you're not making any mistake. After giving me drishti, Didi said to me, Madhuban is your home. Whenever you feel like, you can come to Madhuban. You don't even need to write a letter of permission. I didn't even know, actually, that there would be one day that would come. And so I came to Madhuban in 1985 with this aim. that wherever
वहाँ मैं
Dadiji
सेवा के
sends
लिए
me,
जाने के
I
लिए
will
तैयार हूँ।
go there for service.
तो दादी जी को मैंने ये बात बताई।
I said this to Dadiji,
तो दादी जी ने कहा कि
and Dadiji
मैं
said,
सोचती हूँ कि आपको
I will
कहाँ
think about
भेजूं।
it, where to send you.
और कुछ दिन के बाद
And then after a few days,
दादी जानकी जी को आना था।
Dadi Janki was to
तो
arrive.
दादी जी ने मुझे बुलाया और कहा
Dadiji called me and said,
कि दादी जानकी आने वाली
Dadi
है,
Janki is coming.
क्या आप उनके साथ रहोगे?
Will you stay with her?
तो मैं तो अपने आप को उसी रीति से तैयार करके आई थी।
However, I had prepared
जो
myself in
सेवा
such a
मिली,
way that
जहाँ भी दादी जी
whatever
भेजे
service I
मुझे हाजी
receive,
करना है।
wherever Dadiji sends me,
और
I will say yes.
दादी जानकी जी आए।
So Dadi Janki came.
तब मैं दादी के पास गई नहीं, क्योंकि
However, I
मेरा कोई
didn't
इतना
go to her
सानिध्य नहीं था।
immediately
दादी को
because I didn't really
परिचय भी
know
दादी
Dadi
को मेरा
Janki very
नहीं था।
well. Dadi Janki also didn't know me
तो बड़ी
much.
दादी ने मुझे पूछा, आप दादी
And
के पास
then
गई थी?
Dadiji asked me, Did you
मैंने
go to
कहा
Dadi
नहीं दादी,
Janki? And I said,
मैं
No.
ऐसे कैसे चली
How
जाऊं?
can I go just like
तो
that?
दादी ने कहा, दोपहर को हम भोजन
And
करके
Dadi
बाहर आते
said,
हैं ना
When
आंगन
we
में,
come out after
तब
having
आप
our
वहीं
lunch
रहना,
into the
मैं
courtyard,
दादी से
you
परिचय
wait there
कराऊंगी।
and I will introduce you to Dadi Janki.
तो मैं आंगन में बैठी थी, दादी
So I
जी
was sitting in the
भोजन
courtyard
करके सब दादियाँ
and
बाहर
the
आए।
Dadis came out after
तो
having had
दादी
their
ने
lunch.
मुझे बुलाया
And Dadiji called
और
me
मेरा हाथ लेकर के
and
दादी
took my
जानकी जी को
hand
देते हुए
and put
कहा
it in Dadi Janki's
कि
hand
दादी, ये कन्या मैं आपको देती हूँ,
and said, Dadi, I give you
लेकिन
this
इन्हें आप
Kanya,
ब्रह्मा
this
कुमारी
Kumari,
बनाएंगे।
but you must turn her into a
दादी
Brahma
जानकी ने
Kumari.
मुझे ऊपर से नीचे तक देखा
Dadi Janki looked at me and
और कहा
said,
कि दादी, ये ब्रह्मा
up
कुमारी
and
तो
down,
ऑलरेडी
and
है ही।
said, But she is already a
दादी
Brahma
कहती,
Kumari.
अभी तक तो नहीं है,
And Dadiji said,
आप
Well,
उन्हें
not
ब्रह्मा
yet.
कुमारी बनाएंगे।
You need to make her into a Brahma Kumari.
तो मैं दादी जी के पास,
So
दादी जानकी जी के पास गई।
I went to Dadi
दादी ने
Janki
मुझे पूछा,
and Dadi asked me.
हालांकि दादी मेरे फैमिली को जानते थे,
And even though Dadi knew
क्योंकि
my family,
बहुत बड़ी फैमिली जो
it was a
इंग्लैंड में उन्होंने
very
ज्ञान लिया था।
big family who had actually taken
मेरे
knowledge
माँ
in
बाप भी
England.
लंदन गए थे,
In
तो
fact, my
उन्होंने भी
parents
दादी
had
की
also
बहुत
gone to
पालना की थी।
London and they had taken a lot of sustenance from Dadi
लेकिन
Janki. However,
दादी जी की जो पालना देने का तरीका है वो बहुत
the
यूनिक था।
method that Dadi Janki
दादी
used
कभी भी
to give sustenance is very
स्पेशल कुछ
unique.
नहीं कहते थे।
Dadi would never
जो
say
कुछ भी
anything
कहना होता था
specially.
वो दादी क्लास में ही
Dadi
सुना
would
देते थे।
always say whatever she wanted to say in the class.
शुरुआत में मुझे कोई समझ नहीं,
In
क्योंकि
the
मैं सेंटर
beginning,
पर तो
I
रही नहीं
didn't
थी,
know
इसलिए
anything. I
मुझे
didn't have
पता नहीं कि
any
बड़ों के साथ
knowledge or
कैसे रहना
awareness
होता
of
है।
how to be with
तो
the
लच्छू
seniors.
दादी
So
मुझे
Lachu
ट्रेनिंग देती
Dadi
थी
would give me training
कि किस प्रकार से दादियों के साथ रहा
about
जाता है।
how to stay, how to be with the Dadis.
दादी जी दोनों टाइम का, दोपहर का और शाम का भोजन बड़ी दादी के साथ करते थे।
Dadi Janki used to have lunch and dinner
दादी
with
जल्दी
Dadi
नहीं करते थे,
Prakashmani. However,
तो
Dadi
फिर
Janki
रोज
never
दादी
had her
मुरली
breakfast very
क्लास के बाद
early
क्लास कराते
because
थे आधा घंटा। उन
Dadi
दिनों में
Janki used to
6:30 से
give a
7:30 मुरली
class
चलती थी
after the
और
Murli
7:30 से 8
from
बजे तक
7:30 to
उसी
8
दिन
in
की
the
मुरली
morning.
पर दादी जानकी जी
Dadi
क्लास
would give a
कराया करते
class
थे।
on that day's Murli.
तो गुरुवार का दिन था,
So it was the day of the
भोग
Satguru
लगाया, भोग के
Thursday.
बाद तो क्लास नहीं
After
होता है।
Bhog, there was actually no class.
और दादी ने मुझे पहले ही ये बात कह दिया था कि आप भगत नहीं बनना।
And Dadi Janki had said
मैंने
to me
समझा
right
भी
from the
नहीं कि
beginning,
भगत नहीं बनने का
do
मतलब
not
क्या
be a
होता है,
Bhagat. And I hadn't
क्योंकि
really understood what it
भगत
meant
भगवान
to
को
not
जब
be a
तक नहीं
Bhagat,
खिलाते हैं
a
तब तक
devotee.
खाते नहीं।
Because in
तो
fact, a
दादी ने मुझे
devotee,
कहा कि तुम पहले
until
नाश्ता कर
they
लेना,
offer food to God, they
फिर
don't
मुझे
eat
ले
themselves.
जाना नाश्ता करने के
And
लिए,
Dadi
या तो
Janki
मेरे
said to
लिए
me, you
नाश्ता ले
first
आना।
have breakfast and then I will
और
go for
उन दिनों
breakfast.
में ठंडी
or you can bring breakfast to me, but you have it first. And then in those days, when there was the winter time, the dadis used to sit in the same area where the Madhuban Nivasis have their food. They used to sit in the sun. And so Dadi Janki was having what there was with the bhog, and she would have one chapati as well. And Dadi asked me, so did you have breakfast? What did you eat? I said, I ate the bhog of today. And Dadi said, what was there in the bhog? And there was malpura and moong dal. And I said, I ate the malpura. And she said, what about moong dal? And I made a face because I didn't like moong dal at all. And Dadi said, Baba used to like moong dal so much. Dadi likes it so much. Will you bring some more for me? And so I brought her some more of the dal. And Dadi ate just one spoonful from that. And she said to me, now you finish this. I'd never had that dal before, so how could I eat it? And so I had a few tears, and Dadi said to me, until you finish eating this, I won't get up from here. So I sat there, and all those around me, around us who were having breakfast, they were looking to see what was going on. And so I drank up the dal as if it was medicine. And Dadi was sitting there. I didn't like that either, that she had to remain sitting there. So anyway, in the evening, there was Dadi's class. And Dadi said, are you a princess? That you say, I like this, I don't like this. And then Dadi praised Brahma Bhojan a lot. And so I saw that Dadi's method of teaching was unique. I, of course, knew whom Dadi was referring to. And so in this way, in those days, Dadi was very strict. If you read Dadi's earlier classes, you can know how strict Dadi was. She was a very strict teacher. In fact, Dadi never really used to laugh. She was always very serious. I saw Dadi in that form as well, and how little by little Dadi took on the form of the mother. I saw that too. Dadi never used to like anyone making mistakes. If we say, oh, I forgot, Dadi never used to like that. If Dadi says something, and if she had to remind you again about that, one time, two sisters had come, and they didn't really know that it would get very cold in the month of December. And so Dadi asked them, have you brought a muffler, a scarf? And the sister said, no, Dadi. And Dadi said to me, bring them a scarf. Give them a scarf. And so now, yes, you had to give them a scarf. When do you give them? How do I get one? I didn't know anything. And then in the evening, Dadi said to me, did you give the sisters a scarf? I said, no. And she said, why? How come? I said, Dadi, where should I get it from? How do I obtain them? And Dadi said, those poor sisters must be feeling so cold, they will be thinking, and our account will be created. You should do this task immediately. So I saw that Dadi never wanted to be instrumental for anyone having waste thoughts. Whatever needed to be done, it needed to be done there and then. I said to Dadi, you are giving people so much time. And in fact, outside Dadi's room, there was always a line that was a queue that was waiting to speak to her. And in Indraprasth, there was just a little courtyard, and all the Dadis used to stay there in the little rooms there. There was Chandramani Dadi, Nirmal Shanta Dadi, who would sometimes come from Calcutta, and she would stay there too. Santri Dadi also stayed there. And there was one such room which was kept free from any of the Dadis who would come. So there was a queue waiting outside to see Dadi Janki. And I said to Dadi, you give them so much time. And she said, they spend so much each year and they come here. How can I not give them even just 5 minutes? So Dadi had such a sense of compassion that whoever wanted to meet her, until she was able to satisfy them, she wouldn't let them go. She would satisfy them with knowledge or with things or with experiences of yoga. While sitting in her little room, Dadi would do all of that. One time, one brother had come to meet Dadi. And it was 1 o'clock, and I requested the brother to come in the evening. And the brother said, no, I just have a very short question. And I said, no, it's lunchtime for Dadi, so come in the evening. So the brother went away, and I didn't say to Dadi that there was one brother waiting for you. Dadi came out, and she saw the brother and said to the brother, do you want to say something? And the brother asked a question of knowledge. Whenever anyone would ask a question of knowledge, Dadi would become so enthusiastic. Dadi said, my brother is asking a question of knowledge, and Dadi sat right down there again for 10 minutes. In fact, she was never concerned about her food. Dadi has related this in her experiences, that in Karachi, one time Dadi had sat down to have breakfast, and Baba had asked her, Janak, you are having breakfast? And Dadi felt, oh, I've made some mistake. So Baba said, have you related the stories? Have you related the knowledge that you are having breakfast? And so Dadi then kept the aim after that until she had related knowledge to someone, she would not have her breakfast. She would reflect deeply and churn the knowledge so that she could explain the knowledge in many different ways, new ways. Dadiji has received many blessings from Baba. One time Baba asked Dadi had gone to say good morning to Baba. And so when she went to say good morning, Baba said to her, child, Baba is preparing food. And Dadi didn't understand. It was as if Baba was churning deeply, and by saying good morning, it was as if Dadi had disturbed him, interrupted him. And then Baba asked her, "Do you churn the ocean of knowledge?" And Dadi said that I never used to do it until then, but after that I brought that into my sanskars. To make knowledge belong to you, to make it your property, is in our hands. Knowledge means light. Just as if when we want there to be light, we switch the switch on and there is light. So we have received knowledge, so we have received the possibility to have light, but we also need power in order to move along the path of light. We need that strength, and where will that strength come? It will come from yoga. Until we give priority to yoga, the soul will not have that strength. We might be listening to knowledge throughout the day. Each one actually likes to listen to the knowledge. You can listen to classes on YouTube the whole day. There are Madhuban classes live on YouTube. So there is light that has entered the soul, but in order to move accordingly, we need to fill ourselves with the power of yoga. We can fill ourselves with that yoga power by coming into the bhakti. We might make a lot of effort at home, but there we are making effort alone. Or maybe the family follows the path of knowledge and then you can sit together with the family. But here, when the whole gathering, such a big gathering, is sitting in the remembrance of one, then that vibration, that atmosphere helps us. And whatever we want to receive, whatever transformation we want to bring into our lives, that becomes easy with the power of the gathering. So make yourself so powerful in this way. The soul will receive power through yoga. I noticed this in Dadi Janki a lot. Whenever anything used to happen, Dadi used to go underground. And she would do this in such a way that she would only see Baba and nothing else and in those moments. Dadi used to think about the aspects of Gyan and Yoga, and that's it. And I said to Dadi one time, "Dadi, whenever anyone comes to you with questions of knowledge or yoga or any problems, but you only relate to them points of knowledge, is that always a solution?" And Dadi said to me, "Well, what other solution is there other than that?" And so I thought, actually you can't see any other solution. So Dadi said, until you use Gyan in any problem, you will use your sanskars instead, and the sanskars will use you. And then I thought about it, that what does Dadi want to say? Because within each one of us there are hidden sanskars, within which we create a comfort zone. And we don't want to come out of that comfort zone. Because that has become like a habit. When our sanskars use us, then you can know that actually you need knowledge exactly there. Whenever there is any situation or any problem that comes up, we need to use Gyan. Because Baba has given us the complete knowledge. We can think about it. How much do we remember the Sakar Murlis? We have heard these Murlis so many times, and yet if we check ourselves, can we remember the Murli of the morning that same evening? Because that knowledge that Baba has given us is very deep. However, if we do not reflect deeply and churn on this knowledge, then that knowledge will not become our property. For example, when you have food, then that food becomes part of you. However much you manage to digest, that much that food becomes part of the body, the blood. In the same way, the light of knowledge will come to me only when I make knowledge belong to me. Otherwise, yes, according to our principles, we listen to the Murli every day. And we become satisfied, thinking, yes, today as well I have attended the Murli class. Dadi related her experience one time, that when Dadi came into the yagya, actually Dadi came a year and a half after everyone else. Dadi never used the word organization, school, institution. Dadi used to always call it the yagya. Dadi never said karmana seva, service, physical service, but she would call it yagya service. And she would say, have you done any yagya service? So when Dadi came a year and a half after everyone else into the yagya, she was very concerned about what effort she could make so that she could go ahead very quickly to catch up with the other Dadis. And so she asked Baba one time, what effort should I make? Baba said, child, read the Murli 6 times. Dadi thought, okay, I will read it 12 times. Even though Dadi had come a year and a half after everyone else, she had this thought, what effort do I need to make? We can check ourselves. How many years have we come after everyone else? Do I have that same realization that I have come late? And what is the effort that I have to make so that the study that Baba has taught over all these years, I can catch up with that? Because Dadi came a year and a half after everyone else, for 6 months she did not sleep on her bed at night. And at that time there used to be benches, so she would sit there at night and just occasionally she would put her head down, but then when her eyes would open, she would take up the Murli and read it. This Dadi's practice continued right until the end of reading the Murli. As soon as Dadi would wake up, before Amrit Vela, she would read the essence and the question and answer, and then after Amrit Vela, she would read the rest of the Murli, whether she was going to read it for everyone else or not. We would never pick up the Murli and put it away that, okay, Dadi's finished reading the Murli. No, because when in between groups who would come to meet Dadi, sometimes it would take us a few minutes to settle everyone down. And so in between groups, Dadi would read the Murli. Or when someone would call by phone, Dadi would first of all ask them, did you hear the Murli of today? Which aspect did you underline from the Murli today? Whether it was a phone call at 10 p.m. But Dadi would relate the essence of the Murli of that morning. Sometimes Dadi would ask us suddenly as well, unexpectedly, saying, well, on what aspect are you paying attention today? We have seen that even until the last day, Dadi never slacked in her effort. One time Dadi was admitted in the hospital, and for 10 days, Sarla Didi related the Murli to Dadi. And after Dadi recovered, she said, give me the Murli of the last 10 days. And we said, but Dadi, you've heard the Murli, no? But she said, yes, I've heard it, but I haven't read it. And so Dadi, with a lot of concentration, sitting in solitude, she read each of those 10 days Murlis. Dadi never used her age as an obstacle in her effort. Sometimes we would think, last night Dadi didn't sleep, so maybe we won't wake her up at Amrit Vela. If we ever did that, then we would have to face the stern eye of Dadi. When Dadi would ask us, but didn't you get up as well? Of course, if Dadi woke up, we would get up. But Dadi never used to like it. If she missed Amrit Vela, it didn't matter how ill she was. But Amrit Vela, Murli and the evening yoga, Dadi paid special attention to those three things. And also in between, whenever there was a moment, Dadi would become introverted, introspective. We never saw that she was making some effort, but it was a natural practice about how to use her time in a worthwhile way. Of course, Dadi never had any aspects of wasteful thinking or speaking, and no one could ever take those things to Dadi. Her intellect was so clean that there was never any rubbish or anything extra in her intellect. Just as we clean our house every day, if you don't clean it for even one day, would it be okay? Mothers, if you don't clean the kitchen even one day, you can't function. And so in the same way, if you don't clean your intellect even just for one day, and just as it was being said about Dadi, where Dadi says, give yourself the time, talk to yourself. But in order to give yourself the time, it's very essential to clean your intellect. If there are things of the past or things of other people fixed in your intellect, then that takes up the space of the things of Baba. Why is it that we're not able to remember Baba's teachings? Because your memory is full. For example, in your mobile phone, when your memory is full, then what happens? It says delete something, and only then will you be able to add something new. In the same way, for our intellect is filled with some issues or another because we're holding on to old aspects, and so there is no place to fit Baba's teachings in there. And so this is why every day, just as we might clean our houses or we clean our bodies, in the same way, it is essential to clean the mind and the intellect every day. Whenever you get time, we need to check ourselves. How much waste is there in my intellect that I need to delete? Until that is filled in my intellect, we will not be able to make Gyan, the knowledge, our own. Dadi's life was like an open book in front of us. I also had the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with Gulzar Dadi. I used to enjoy observing the Dadis. We will see angels whenever we see them, but these Dadis were really, truly angels. Whenever I saw Gulzar Dadi, whenever I saw Dadi, Gulzar, I would always remember Bap Dada. And Dadi also kept that in her awareness, kept Bap Dada in her awareness. Because Dadi used to always consider herself to be the chariot of Baba. And of course, whatever is in our awareness will come into the awareness of those who are in front of us. Why does everyone remember Bap Dada when they see Dadi? Because she has that in her awareness. And I always saw Gulzar Dadi had this very firm practice that she would only reply what was asked, what was needed. She would never speak anything extra. She would speak in brief, to the point, and give answers that were like that. And in her final days, I used to go to Bombay quite a few times in order to experience Dadiji's company. What I saw, that Dadi had this old body, and of course, if she had used the body for 90 years, then naturally there would be something that wasn't working very well. For example, for us, if we have any issues, then we immediately say, oh, my knees are hurting, I have a headache, I have a backache. But I never heard from Gulzar Dadi's mouth that today I have this pain. Of course, she had an old body, and the doctors would ask her, Dadi, do you have any pain, any disturbance? And Dadi would always say no. She was more than 90 years old, but she always considered this body to be Baba's chariot, not her own body. And so she never actually experienced any trouble with the body. The doctors would also be surprised and would say, Dadi, tell us what your pain is or disturbance is. But Dadi would never have any complaint about her body. So what I thought, that our subconscious mind, whatever is filled within that, it gives us help in bringing that, to put that into practice. If we keep thinking, oh, my knees are paining, then that goes into our subconscious mind. However, if we avoid all complaints and we make our mind so powerful, because there is that strength within the mind, we say you will become as you think. So what should we think? That I am healthy. Not even to think I have no disturbance, because the subconscious mind doesn't accept any negation. In order to make our body healthy, we can apply our mind. Baba also had a lot of pain and trouble with the body, but he never complained or described it. Right until the last day, Baba came into the class to speak the Murli. On the 18th of January, although Baba did not give the class in the morning, but Baba said, Baba will come into the class in the evening. So Baba never missed the class even for one day. And now when we are studying while sitting at home, in many places there are still online classes. So we come into a comfort zone because of that. By listening to things online, you can enter into a comfort zone, even though there is the possibility of going into class. But we might prefer to listen to the classes while sitting at home. However, when you listen to the classes, you are at home, you are alone, and you may not listen with so much attention, as much attention as you might listen to when you are sitting in the center. So now, whatever time we have in our hands, how do we need to use that in a worthwhile way? This is in our hands. If you use Dadiji's formula, that I came very late, however fast I can gallop, some have been for 50, 60, 70 years late. However, whatever time I have, I need to use that in a worthwhile way, 100%, and that is in my hands. We need to make our aim so firm that we can put our full determination of 20 nails to attain that aim. Om Shanti.